Hi, Anti-Society! Welcome back to the Antisocial Planet, and today we are watching episodes 280 and 281 of Bleach. So in the last episode, I was super excited that we are finally getting Visored coming back into this conflict. Obviously, it was cool seeing Shinsui versus Stark and that little interaction. It looks like that's going to be put on hold because of the whole people getting stabbed and getting hit with Setos thing that was happening. We've kind of had Visored come in and decide to take over this fight a little bit, along with the help of some of the captains and lieutenants, but I'm so excited to see Visored back. I've been wondering where they're at for a while because we got that flashback arc, which I loved because I love getting character-driven stories, and any kind of good backstory, give it to me, you know? Getting to see them finally coming back into this conflict, especially now that we've seen that flashback arc and we know the kind of personal stakes that are involved with them wanting to go up against Aizen specifically, but also like Tosen and Gin are also part of that, and the personal grudges that they have involved in this conflict. We even had Shinji pointing out to Yamamoto that they weren't actually like working together, but they weren't necessarily enemies either. Like Shinji saying like, you know, an enemy of my enemy is my friend, basically. So the fact that Visored is helping is more because they have their own reasons for wanting to fight Aizen as opposed to wanting to ally themselves with Soul Society, but also Shinji pointing out that he's, you know, allies with Ichigo. And that's just like just cute, you know? I like that they're friends. I like that Shinji has a soft spot for Ichigo because me too. I have a feeling that we are going to be dealing with the last three Espada because we haven't fully dealt with them yet. Of course, we had Halibel breaking out of the ice that Toshiro had encased her in. We also had Barragan not being that affected by Soifeng's Bankai, which I suspected, considering we didn't like see any of the actual like impact or damage done by that. But we have Visored coming in to help out. We also have Wonder Weiss making a reappearance, which is like something also I was wondering about where they were at. So it looks like obviously we are going to be dealing with some of that first. I know that we had Shinji picking a fight with Aizen before Tosen got involved, so maybe we will see some of Tosen's fight too. I'm not really sure where we are going to focus at the beginning because there are so many of these little kind of skirmishes getting set up, so we will have to wait and see which ones get focused on. I think we'll probably focus on like one main one and maybe see little bits and pieces of the other fights like we have previously with fighting the Espada and Arrancar, but I'm really not that sure. We're gonna have to wait and see how Ukitake and Shinsui are doing. We know Shinsui is like basically okay, given that Lisa was kicking him around a little bit and calling him out for kind of backing out of the fight when Visored showed up. But I am worried about Ukitake because he was stabbed and also like he's ill and stuff, so I'm worried. But I worry about everybody, like just everybody. So we will probably get into some of those conflicts. I'm assuming we are going to be dealing with the Espada first and then going into some of the other ones. So we might start with Halibel because she's number 3, but who knows? Bleach likes to surprise me every once in a while. So let's just get into episode 280. In 3, 2, 1, go. Are we gonna see Hisagi versus Tosen? Because I'm so ready for that. Hiyori being chaotic is normal. Are we even surprised at this point? I don't think Toshiro will put up with it though, so that'll be an interesting moment. Oh, I'm so excited for Hisagi and Tosen though. I just the character undertones to that fight I think will be just really really good stuff. I feel oddly like I'm talking really loud, but I'm probably not. Just me being weird. I also have my Titan mug. I don't want to like swallow right next to the mic though. I feel like I just got into this reaction. I'm already being a little bit chaotic. So we'll see where my mood takes me. I mean, look how cool they are. I'm just so happy that they're here. Remember when there was a time when I wasn't sure what to do with Visored? I wasn't sure if they were good guys or bad guys, and now I'm just so excited to have them around. I really like his mask. And the like piano string thing. Because there could be like piano strings, which I think is like they're kind of implying given the like music cue, but like also like puppet strings. Like, I don't know, I just think it's really cool. I'm so excited for Shinji to like officially pick a fight with Aizen. I don't think we'll get to it for a little while, but I'm excited for when it does happen. His poor hair, though. I mean, I know he just got healed, so I'm a little bit worried about him. But also, I love Hizage's fighting style. Ooh, went straight for the head. They have a lot of chaotic energy, those two together. He does want to fight Aizen for Momo. I can't even keep up with the subtitles with her ranting. Well, this one obviously because it's repetitive. I like how this beautifully puts together the point I was making earlier about Toshiro being a very emotional driven person as well, but he tries to suppress it. And now, like, when faced with someone who, like, pushes him to, like, be emotive, he just, like, his temper explodes. Like, at least it's just like, eh, being interested in girls is fine. So they also have a limit. I think we went over that a little bit when they were like training Ichigo, but I only really know Ichigo's situation with the whole holification, which like obviously isn't a normal case. He's a sweetheart, but also I think that he is going to make Barragan's day unfortunate. I guess Soifang would know him, wouldn't she? Lies. Lies again. I guess this, yeah, I love that line of like all are equal when it comes to like aging and time and stuff because it's true. Everyone is equal when it comes to progressing through time. We all do it at the same speed as everyone else. Such a good matchup though of powers to have someone who's like really powerful in keto against someone who like rots things that come in close proximity. I feel like I'm losing my voice though. Is he rotting the keto as well? I guess there's is like a temporal element to keto in terms of like how long, putting up a barrier lasts. I guess you could fast forward it, couldn't you? Still, I believe in him. It does seem like Hisagi is like legitimately grateful to Tosen, like we saw earlier when he was talking and he was still using those teachings, but he's still like against his decision. Like it's one of those things where like you can have respect for someone and still like fundamentally disagree with them. It's just like it's an interesting element to that conflict of these two characters. Why do I feel like this is gonna make me emotional? And not just because I'm worried about him. Oh, I feel like that fight might get to my emotions. There's just something about it. These two. I think we need to focus. Lisa out here trying to be disciplined and on task, and there's just these two children fighting. Even though I know like Hiyori is like not as young as she looks. It's probably been a long time since Gin saw Shinji. Like he was a small child who had like just gotten into the academy. Everything does seem to be affected by time, doesn't it? See, that's what I was saying. I'm like, there's like something temporal about how long keto can last. I mean, the other captains are also busy, or still in Huecomundo. It's a handy barrier, though. Nevertheless. Dang. It's like a whole, like, building. The roof and everything. Can't he just, like, go around it, though? Mm. Urahara would, no, wouldn't he? It's probably the point. It's like it's probably just a temporary barrier to do something else. What are we doing? We layering different techniques? Whoa. It's quite a, I don't know, barrier. What's the actual attack gonna be, though? Because I don't think that he would just try to put him in a box. See? Are they gonna use her bankai? Is that what she wanted? To have Urahara trapped for a while? Hopefully after we deal with all of the conflict, because I feel like he might be helpful in this, if he shows up. We have yet to see him. I was wondering if maybe they would trap him in the box so that he would use his aging power, and because like it was all condensed in one place, even he couldn't escape it. Like if everything is affected by time, that means he is too, right? So I thought like maybe his own ability would be used against him. I mean, it looks like he's still there, so maybe we'll see. But that was like my thought. I always like powers that like manipulate time though, and Bleach just like never quite does what I think they will with time powers. Because I was completely off with Orihime and like why Aizen wanted her in Las Noches, which I'm still upset about. I think my theory was pretty cool. Maybe I'll just write a fan fiction of it, just begrudgingly. I also feel like it's weird for them to like defeat Barragan before Halibel, given the numbering of the Espada, but also like we've already had discussions about whether or not the ranking actually correlates to who is more powerful. I think specifically in regards to like Ulqueora, but there's some ambiguity with like the ranking of most people's powers in this show. Nothing's ever black and white with Bleach. It can never just be straightforward. There's gotta be nuance, which I love. Ooh, looks like they cracked his mask though. Are we gonna get some backstory about the king of Huecamundo? Of course it does. It's always a haunted music room, isn't it? Oh, Hisaki. I feel like I never fully know what to talk about after these episodes because we're kind of switching between all these different things that are going on, and I feel like my brain doesn't know how to like process all of it, especially since it's like in bits and pieces and I have to kind of like string it together over like the course of multiple episodes. So if my brain's a little bit scattered, one, that's just because I'm in like a weird mood this evening, but also because there's a lot going on. I do feel as if we are going to be dealing with. I wanted to say we're going to be dealing with Halibel first because that makes sense with the like numbering of the Espada, but at the same time, it looks like we're going to be going into some kind of backstory about how Aizen showed up in Hueco Mundo and kind of dethroned Barragan. So I don't know if we're actually going to be dealing with Halibel first, because usually if we get a backstory about a character, it's because like we're finishing up kind of their part of the arc, at least if they're like a adversary that we're kind of finishing it up. I'm thinking Grimjo. We got a backstory for Grimjo just in time for like, his fight to go sideways. So I'm assuming we are going to be dealing with Baragan first and then maybe getting back into Halibel's later. I am very interested mostly in the fight with Tosen, specifically with Hizagi, but also like the other captain, because I feel like there's a lot of just different layers to that fight in terms of like emotions and personal stuff. And I do think that the fight with Hizagi getting involved, it's going to make me emotional because he's not fully healed from having already fought. So I'll say I'm ready, but I'm not ready. I'm never ready for the feelings to just hit me in anime. I don't know why. I don't know why. I always go in and I'm like, yeah, I totally know what's gonna happen. And then I cry anyway. So who knows? But I do think that it has a lot of character development with it. I especially like that it introduces this idea that you can respect someone and still disagree with them. Like, you can still learn a lot from people that you don't necessarily see eye to eye with in terms of your own personal beliefs. And I feel like that's really what's going on with Hisagi and Tosen, because we even saw with Hisagi earlier on that he still incorporates a lot of what Tosen taught him in the way that he fights and the way that he views like his purpose. So I feel like that adds a layer of complexity to the fight, because it's not just revenge, it's not just being upset about a betrayal, it's not just, you know, going up against someone who you are angry at or you disagree with, or that you have some kind of vindictive feeling toward. It's also like respecting that person and still seeing them as a teacher and as someone who's like fundamentally important to who you are, but also disagreeing with them and knowing that you're going to be on two sides of a conflict. And I feel like we haven't fully seen something like that in Bleach up to this point, but I think that it will add some. I just think it'll be a new way of going about these conflicts that we've been having. I talked a little bit before about how we've just been having like lots and lots of fights back to back to back, and it can get a little bit exhausting, I think, to kind of have all of this fighting going on. I understand that it's like part of this like war that is brewing and stuff, but it's also just sort of exhausting when, at least for me anyway, I'm not like getting a break with like filler episodes and arcs and stuff. So it's a lot of just conflict happening. And I feel like it can get a little bit stale if you don't start incorporating other elements to why those fights are happening and why they're important. So I feel like bringing in the kind of the complexity that is Tosen and Hisagi. And I feel like Tosen is kind of like a wild card in general, because I feel like it's easy to be like angry and outraged by like Aizen and even Gin, maybe, because Gin has kind of that like snake energy to him, and I feel like I never trusted him. Like, I never fully saw him as someone who was trustworthy, or someone who was putting an honest version of themselves forward for the world to see. So, you know, it's kind of it's easy to like be on the side of that conflict, where I feel like Tosen is like a little bit more complex in general, but like why he's in this fight at all, or like why he's siding the way that he is. And I've talked about it before, where I'm like, I disagree fundamentally with Tosen's beliefs, but like I also feel like I share some characteristics with him, and that like I am also a very stubborn person who like sticks to what they believe in unflinchingly. Like, once I decide that like this is something that is like who I am, or like part of who I am, it's very, very difficult to make me change or budge in even the slightest way. So I feel like there's a certain part of me that understands him, and like some of the stuff that Hisagi talks about that he's learned from him, like, I agree. So it makes him a slightly more complicated issue for him to be like an adversary than I feel like Aizen and Gin are, at least at this point. I feel like there's probably a backstory for Gin. There's probably something with Gin. I just haven't gotten to it yet. But I guess we'll have to wait and see where all of this leads. It looks like we are going to find out how Aizen ended up with Las Noches. So let's just get into episode 281. In 3, 2, 1, go. So yeah, I was gonna... Oh yeah, we were getting backstory. I'm actually legitimately excited to get some backstory. Because I feel like... I feel like there's... It kind of like... It's tempting to just assume that like Hueco Mundo like didn't have any kind of structure or hierarchy really until Aizen showed up, especially since like we like see the Arrancar, all these Arrancar that he's made and these Espada that he's made, and you know, Las Noches, and like the impact that Aizen has had on like Hueco Mundo in general and like Arrancar and stuff. But there are like natural Arrancar they're like naturally born Arrancar that become super powerful just because they like keep evolving and eating other hollows. So I like getting some backstory about like what exactly the hierarchy was prior to Aizen walking in. And especially since it looks like Barragan was like already a really powerful figure in Hueco like before anything happened, like being the emperor, I think he said, the king, before he was dethroned. Yes, I remember. I forgot for a little while, but then I remembered. It will also be interesting to see like whether or not Baragan actually like respects Aizen or if it's just a matter of like knowing when you're beat, knowing when like you're not powerful enough to go up against an opponent and kind of like biding your time until maybe you can get your throne back. I feel like it wasn't enough though. I don't know. Uh-oh. Somebody better catch her. Or not. Sort of catch her. I mean, I will say this about Omaida. He is good at being a cushion when Siphon gets thrown around and dropped from the sky. I'll be interested to see if that comes to fruition and how Urahara feels about that. I feel like maybe he would stay in the box if he wanted to. Like if he was like, I'll just hang out for a little while. But if he didn't want to be in the box, he probably would not be. I'm just putting that out there now. Oh dang. Good reflexes though, so that you don't lose another limb. I guess it answers my question about whether or not he can, like the aging power can be used against him, because it doesn't look like it can. Like even though he's surrounded by it, it doesn't look like it's affecting him. Are you a god though? I feel like whenever someone's like, I'm a god, that's usually the beginning of their downfall. God complex never goes well. Did take out a good chunk of his head though. So there's that anyway. That was one of my questions. Is he loyal to Aizen or is he just like offended? Like, is he just wrathful as a king and like an unconquerable power? You might want to try a new tactic than the barriers. Just saying. He's quick though. I need you to not hurt him though. Mm. Oh no! I want someone to beat him up really bad. Ooh. What a good line though. Feel proud of yourself in hell. What a line. There have been a few really good lines in the last few episodes. This is what I was also asking. If his power could be turned against him. So he did it on purpose. He got caught. He had his hand get caught in the rot cloud on purpose. Wow. Clever though. See, that was my thought too. That if time is inescapable for everyone, then it's also true for a god. Definitely do not try to hug her. Unless you're Yoroichi, then you could probably get away with it. Doesn't seem like you are, given that you are also working for Aizen. Whether because you want to or not. Flashback? I'm asking given the muted colors. Who was you? That's one way to get their attention. I definitely believe he would have done that, like made his army fight itself. So Las Noches was already there to some capacity. Interesting. I thought I just like assumed Aizen built it. Are we using illusions again? It's been a while since we saw Aizen draw his Zanpakuto. Question. If Aizen actually believes that mixing Soul Reapers and Hollows power together makes them more powerful, Does that mean he's done that for himself? Like, is Aizen also part hollow now? Is Gian part hollow? I don't think Tosin would do it. So I feel like he isn't. Because I feel like that would go against something like fundamental about his beliefs. But Geen might. I feel like I'm supposed to be paying attention to this fight, and instead I'm having an internal revelation that I don't know what to do with. I'll try to focus. Illusions. I was wondering about the crown, because I was like, the crown is different here than the one that he has in like the current timeline. Oh, dang. Wait. I would also like to know what that was. We're just like not gonna explain what Aizen did because they didn't give like a clear a clear shot of it either, which I feel like was intentional. So you don't really know what he did um, until probably a lot later when we actually get to see him properly fight. But at least this tells me that Barragan isn't actually like loyal in any capacity or like agrees with Aizen's um like what he is fighting for, what he's trying to build. Mm. So it's actually kind of sad that it like his weapon shattered before even like reaching its target. I need the Espada to stop making me emotional in general. One down though. Okay, but I actually kind of like the Shinji against Gin potential. Oh no! Is he gonna get more serious now that they've taken out Barragan? I feel like Stark is the kind of person who would be more attached. Because, like, even if he wasn't, like, actually, like, there wasn't any kind of, like, friendship or even, like, acquaintanceship between him and Barragan, I feel like because they were both, like, Espada, because they were both part of the, like, top three, that he would feel, like, an affinity towards him anyway, as someone who, like, represents, like, isolation and being alone and stuff like that, that he would kind of look for those threads of connection with people, regardless of any kind of like emotional attachment necessarily. Those like, threads that tie us to other people and being part of a group and stuff like that. I would like a preview. And I'll try not to freak out too much about my curiosity about whether or not Geen is part hollow. Sometimes my brain connects things together and they don't necessarily come to fruition, so. I love to talk about accents because as a linguist is like accents always fascinated me. Oh, we're still doing the scary stories. He is pretty bad at keto. Yeah. I like that we got to see that even Baragan was incapable of escaping time, like and the fact that that was something about his character that he tried to go against. Like even he wanted to try and fight desperately against the inevitable, which is a very like human trait, which probably he wouldn't appreciate me making that connection, but I feel like that very much is something that humans feel. There's a fear of the inevitability of time, and the fact that Baragan even himself wanted to escape that and saw himself as separate from that because he like thought he controlled it. But just because you can control something doesn't mean that you're immune to it, right? You can learn to control a sword, but that doesn't mean that somebody can't use a sword against you or even your weapon against you. So the fact that he was so adamant about being a god and being an emperor and being, eternal, and then having his power used against him was such a fearful thing for him. And it was something that I brought up in the last episode where I said maybe he too can have his power used against him. It feels like it's never quite touching him, and I wasn't sure how that would work and how he would have some kind of protection against that. So the fact that we had I'm not going to get his name right, the pink-haired Visored using his power to kind of like embed his kind of the rotting effect like inside of Barragan instead of it being something trying to come from the outside in, which obviously wasn't working with their previous attacks. So just cool little details with that and his character. There's so many things about the Espada that are very human, and I keep thinking that, whereas like, oh, the Espada keep making me emotional, and I think the reason that they keep making me emotional is because they have so many human traits. Like, yes, they're fundamentally hollows, like in that they were originally hollows, but the thing that makes them who they are is that they have those human traits incorporated into themselves as well. So it's not just a matter of them being hollows that have a bunch of power, like we've seen with like Vestalorde or Menos or whatever, which are just powerful hollows. They have those human elements mixed into them, which also brings power, but brings all of those human traits as well, those feelings and emotions and desires and fears and things like that as well. So all of that being mixed together into who they are. And we see that with not only Barragan being fearful of his own power, but we also see that through Hannibal getting very emotional about her subordinates being attacked. We see that with Stark, making himself a companion, but also having an emotional reaction to even Barragan being defeated and him saying, I'm not the kind of person who usually takes vengeance, but in this one instance, it seems like he will. And of course, we saw that introduced with like Grimjo and Ulquiorra and lots of the other Espada as well, and even some of the like past Espada that were like the 3-number ones. So I just love that we keep exploring and pushing that aspect and seeing it from lots of different angles, and how just because they're Espada, just because they're hollows, even in the case of Barragan being like naturally born Arrancar, the fact that those two get affected by these kind of human traits, and there's all these blurred lines now between like good and evil. There's a more of a clear distinction in like the really, really early on episodes of like Shinigamis and Soul Reapers are the good guys and Hollows are the bad guys. And the more we go through the series, the more blurred that line becomes, the more gray in that black and white contrast of good and bad. And it's just sort of slowly been building up over time to the point where now I was like, I had a moment where I was looking at this fight and I'm like, they're Espada that I have emotional feelings about. There are Visored that I have emotional feelings about. There are Soul Reapers that I have emotional feelings about. Like, there's so much getting mixed up together that like it's to a point where I'm like, okay, like I like these characters, but it's not distinguished by just Soul Reapers or just Visored or just Espada. It's like all mixed up together, and I have all of these different feelings and emotions depending on like the specific person, and I feel like that's so reflective of reality, where like people aren't fundamentally good or bad based on like the group that they're a part of. They are like still individuals. Like, yeah, the overall group kind of has its own morality kind of that they've all agreed to, that kind of branches over all of the members, but ultimately it's each of the individuals in the group that like make decisions that decide on what that morality is. So I just love it. I just love the complexity of it. I also had some other thoughts in there that like may or may not come to fruition involving Gain and Aizen and possible hollowification, because if being partly hollow is such a powerful thing to have, then I don't know why some subordinates would have it and others wouldn't. Like why Gain wouldn't also have some kind of stake in that, or Aizen himself. But I'm gonna like put that away. I'm gonna put that in its own little box and set it aside until further notice, because there may or may not be anything to worry about with that. But if it does happen, I am definitely going to point out that I was right. You can click this playlist to see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so you don't miss the next time that I post a Bleach reaction, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!